All right, so that's just one of the top stories that we have for you this morning. But also, like I mentioned in our coverage this morning, we're looking at the responses deadline, which is today, and the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, its chairman and President Uhuru Kenyatta have until the close of business today to file their responses to NASA flag bearer Raila Odinga's petition at the Supreme Court. Now, Raila, in the 25,000-page presidential petition, accuses the electoral agency of manipulating votes in favor of Uhuru and denying him the win. The Supreme Court registry will, as it did on the last day for filing petitions, remain open until midnight. IEBC Chief Executive Officer Ezra Chiloba on Tuesday gave the assurance that their legal team would be complying with the set timelines after having already turned over to the court all the originals of the presidential election result forms. All right, so like I mentioned, today marks the last day that all the teams, of course, President Uhuru Kenyatta, IEBC and Wafula Chebukati have to respond to NASA's claims. We'll be having a conversation about that here in studio with lawyers Duncan Okach and Murigi Kamande. That's going to be happening shortly. But just moving on to another new twist, and the independent presidential candidate, Professor Michael Wainaina, has applied to be enjoined in the petition. Through lawyer Harrison Kinyanjui, he says he will be sharing with the court his experience as an independent candidate. Wainaina, who got 13,257 votes, will be opposing the Raila Odinga petition. He says he will be articulating his faith in the IEBC to conduct credible elections. So I want us to have a conversation with my colleague Rita Tinina just to put everything in context. Remember, today is the last day that the respondents can actually just file their responses to the petition that has been put across by NASA. Rita, thank you very much for joining us. She's joining us from our City Center studio. So for now, do we know if all the respondents have been able to file their statements and, of course, their evidence in regards to the petition at the Supreme Court?
Well, good morning, Betty. We are expecting that the respondents, the first respondent is the IEBC, the second is the IEBC chairman, Wafula Chebukati, and the third is President Uhuru Kenyatta. Today is when they should be filing their responses to that petition by Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka. According to the rules, they should file the petition 4 days after they were served. They were served on Sunday, so today will be the deadline within which they can file their responses. On Tuesday, when the IEBC was submitting the electoral declaration forms, the IEBC CEO Ezra Chiloba saying that its legal team was ready. It was ready with all that is required, and they would also be filing their responses today. So the IEBC chairman and Uhuru Kenyatta will be filing those responses today. But Betty, as you mentioned as well, yesterday, independent candidate Professor Michael Wainaina and his running mate Miriam Mutua filed an application at the Supreme Court registry. They are seeking to be enjoined in the petition as respondents. They say that they looked at the results that were declaring President Uhuru Kenyatta as the winner of the August 8th 8th polls, and they accepted the results. They have no objections to them. And they say they have also perused the petition by NASA, and in the application saying that they do not see anything that would warrant the August 8th polls to be annulled. This is the second presidential candidate to seek to be enjoined in the suit. On Monday, Ekuru Aukot of the Third Way Alliance also sought to be enjoined in the petition, but he is supporting the NASA petition, saying if he is enjoined in the suit, he will prove to the court why he thinks that the IEBC did not conduct the elections in a free and fair manner. In that application, saying he will outline several flaws that the IEBC did not manage to deal with during the polls. So what is required is that the applicants who are seeking to be enjoined in the suit should do so before the responses are filed, and the applications will be listened to or determined after the respondents file their responses. So by tomorrow, perhaps in an interlocutory session, the court will decide whether or not to enjoin Ekuru Aukot as well as Professor Michael Wainaina in the petition. Betty.
All right, Rita, now the professor says that he's going to be using his experience, during the whole electioneering period to submit why he feels that IBC indeed conducted a fair and credible election. But does he have sufficient evidence to back this quote-unquote experience with?
Well, he says he has faith. The way the election was conducted, he says the two parties already, the petitioners and the respondents, he says the NASA team as well as Jubilee, President Uhuru Kenyatta says they have interest in this. They have political positions, and he says as an independent candidate he was not affiliated to either of them, and so his view and his responses and what he will present before the court will help the court to look at the issue from a different perspective, not from a perspective of someone who was really interested in the election in a I would say a party position, that is NASA as well as Jubilee. Betty.
All right, Rita, let's just go back to the petition. And of course, you mentioned that today is the last day that the respondents can put in their submissions. But just looking ahead, we're expecting that there's going to be a pre-trial conference. Maybe you could just give us perspective in regards to that. What exactly is going to be, discussed in this pre-trial conference that is probably going to happen on Saturday?
Well, in a pre-trial conference, basically the judges as well as the parties, the legal teams will be sitting to sort of set the ground rules. What will happen when the petition hearing kicks off? For instance, they will be deciding, the lawyers for NASA, how much time they will take to present their case, how much time the respondents as well should be given. They will also decide before the pre-trial conference in that interlocutory session whether those seeking to be enjoined in the suit should be given that chance. So basically it will just be a House rules setting session. But remember also, Betty, there is the question of the Chief Justice, who is the President of the Supreme Court, David Maraga. He is a staunch Seventh-day Adventist. And when he was being vetted, he had reservations about working on a Saturday, but also in the run-up to the elections and even after, when he was saying that the Supreme Court is ready to hear the petitions, he also assured that the judges were ready to sit long hours, to sit overnight, to ensure that the 14-day deadline set by the Constitution for the Supreme Court to hear and determine the petition is met. And so many are waiting to see whether the Chief Justice this time, for the first time, he will be taking one for the country and sitting on a Saturday, which he had said he was not going to, Betty.
All right. Finally, Rita, let's talk about the legal teams. I remember, just having a conversation earlier on KTN News. Sophia Wanuna was able to engage Ezra Chiloba, and he said that he was not going to divulge, who will be representing IEBC in this particular case. When are we expecting to see just this legal team? Because as you've rightly put it when you started, I mean, this is going to be a supreme petition. It's going to be a battle of legal minds. Do we know who is going to be representing which party in this particular petition?
Well, the team of lawyers who have been representing either the IEBC, those who have been representing Jubilee in other instances, I would say like Fred Ngatia, he's a top lawyer. He has been representing Jubilee in other matters, might be appearing for Uhuru Kenyatta in this particular case. But Betty, what I can tell you is that the best lawyers, team of lawyers in the country, most of them are in these legal teams. There is no one party, any respondent or the petitioner who has one or two lawyers. Each of them have 5, 6, minimum of 4 lawyers representing them, just maybe indicating or showing how crucial this is. Analysts have dubbed it as the biggest, one of the biggest political cases in the history of the country. And so all the teams, all the parties in the case, either the petitioners as well as the respondents, of course, want to ensure that they have the best teams arguing out their case before court. Betty.
I thank you very much, Rita Nina, there reporting from our City Center studio, just giving us an analysis really of where we are at with the Supreme Court petition.